Tonight on Ukraine Today. Fierce battles in the Donetsk region. The Russian army is making gains. They've also advanced in the Zaporizhia region. 17 or almost 17 Patriot systems for Ukraine. Donald Trump makes a bold statement on Russia's war. A 50-day ultimatum. The US is threatening Russia with new restrictions. The Kremlin replies with Medvedev's fingers. Malta and Slovakia say no. Will Europe finally approve its 18th sanctions package? Drone warfare. How UAVs have literally frozen the front line and what Ukraine is doing about it. All that and more right now. Hi there, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and let's get to the news. Soon we'll talk about Trump's loud message to Russia, but first let's go to the battlefield, to the shelling, to the attacks. Heavy fighting continues in the Donetsk region. Russian forces have captured the village of Bohotyr, that's according to Deep State. They've also made gains in the Zaporizhia regions, but at what cost? In the past 24 hours, Russia has lost at least 1,230 soldiers killed and wounded. Since the beginning of the full-scale war, that's already 1,036,290 troops. Also, just yesterday, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 3 Russian tanks, 6 armored vehicles, 52 artillery systems and dozens more pieces of enemy equipment. Overnight, Russia attacked a medical facility in the Sumy region. A child was injured. Several apartment buildings and non-residential structures were also damaged. In Kherson, rescue workers came under a second drone strike while cleaning up after a Russian attack. Shelling also hit Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones hit a Russian plant in the Lipetsk region. It's called Energy, and it makes batteries, including for Russian missiles that are launched at peaceful Ukrainian cities. Now to Donald Trump's big statement on Russia. Remember, I told you, I expected him to say the same thing we have heard before, maybe with some sanctions. Well, Trump actually surprised me. He said the same thing plus sanctions plus weapons. 17 or almost 17 Patriot systems for Ukraine. Trump announced this during the meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He said some of the Patriots would be in Ukraine within days.
We have one country that has 17 Patriots getting ready to be shipped. They're not going to need them for them. So we're going to work a deal where the 17 will go, or a big portion of the 17 will go to the war site.
And that's not all. Trump also said the US would introduce 100% secondary sanctions against Russia and its trading partners, unless there's a deal on Ukraine within 50 days. Most likely, that means a ceasefire. So what did the Kremlin say to that? The reply came from Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's former president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council. On the platform X, he posted this. Trump issued a theatrical ultimatum to the Kremlin. The world shuddered, expecting the consequences. Belligerent Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care. Let me translate that from Medvedev into human. I'm scared, but the Kremlin gave me the script and told me to post it. Because really, if Russia doesn't care, why write about it at all? Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with US President's special envoy, General Kit Kellogg. His visit started yesterday and will last for a week. They discussed defense issues.
We're also working on major defense agreements with the US. It's not the right time yet to speak publicly about the details, but together we can do a lot for the sake of security. Ukraine is ready for every honest and effective step towards peace, lasting peace and real security. It's Russia that's not ready. It's Russia that must be forced. And that's already happening.
Zelensky also stressed the importance of sanctions and said Ukraine's partners understand that. Not all countries, though. Some are trying to block the next round of EU sanctions against Russia. According to Politico, Malta and Slovakia are against the 18th sanctions package. This one would lower the price cap on Russian oil. Let's follow the money. Malta has a big oil tanker fleet, and its economy depends on oil transit. As for Slovakia, they say they'll support sanctions only if they get 20 billion euros in aid. War is war, but hey, 20 billion euros is still 20 billion euros. Germany, meanwhile, is stepping up support. Major General Christian Freuding, who heads Ukraine coordination at the Bundeswehr, said Berlin will fund long-range drones for Ukraine. He was just in Kiev for talks on boosting air defense and supporting Ukraine's defense industry. And now to drone warfare. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the front line has been almost frozen by constant drone surveillance. FPV drones can detect nearly every movement, making it nearly impossible for troops to leave their shelters. More in our next report.
The front line in Ukraine is moving forward less and less, not because of a lack of ammunition, but because a new era has begun, the era of drones. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing Ukrainian sources, drones dominate the front lines. They make movement impossible. Every step is under surveillance, any movement could be your last. Now, drones are not just for reconnaissance, they are the eyes, hands and weapons of war. They lay mines, drop grenades, deliver ammunition and medical supplies, and sometimes even evacuate the wounded and the dead. And most importantly, they track every movement and strike precisely where a target appears. From the very first days of the full-scale war, it was Ukraine that placed its bet on these iron birds.
This is a Ukrainian know-how, the tactic known as the drone war. The Ukrainian side, fully aware of the Russian army's superiority in firepower, namely tube and rocket artillery, and thus the coefficient of fire damage and ammunition reserves, was forced to change its tactics of warfare, taking into account the realities directly on the battlefield.
At first, Ukrainian defenders used drones for aerial photography. At that time, they performed a reconnaissance function, recording enemy movements onto flash drives. Then analysts would review these videos. But everything changed when the footage began to be transmitted in real time. From that moment, the artillery started hitting targets precisely. Quickly, more precisely, instantly.
The tech specialists realized that a simple device, resembling a claw and created with a 3D printer, could be activated from the control panel by turning on the drone's light, which would make it release a grenade. The explosion can injure or kill a soldier, and if dropped through a hatch, it can blow up armored vehicles as well.
But what truly changed the game was another invention: strike drones with a first-person view, the so-called FPV drones. They give the operator a full sense of presence, as if they are flying themselves. Yes, they are less powerful than missiles, but they win in terms of accuracy and, most importantly, cost. They can be mass-produced domestically.
What the Ukrainian side has proposed is an innovative tactic, the mass use of FPV drones to destroy both heavy armored vehicles and enemy personnel. In other words, all heavy armored vehicles are effectively destroyed within the range of FPV drones. Moreover, by using repeaters, Ukraine's defense forces have increased the effective range of FPV drones in certain areas of the front from 20 up to even 30 kilometers.
The enemy is trying not to fall behind the Ukrainians. And although most of the innovations were created by Ukrainian engineers and military personnel, in one area Russian developers turned out to be faster. They began equipping FPV drones with fiber optic cables that connect the device directly to the operator. This allows them to bypass electronic interference and jammers.
After drone strikes by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on the plant in Saransk, which was the only facility in Russia producing fiber optic cables for FPV drones, this situation was neutralized at the very moment when Russian activity in using fiber optic FPV drones was declining. At the moment, Ukraine's defense forces and Ukroboronprom are scaling up the production of Ukrainian-made fiber optic FPV drones. Moreover, the occupiers have noted a sharp increase in their numbers.
Ukraine's answer was the Vampire drone. It operates at night when most drones are blinded. The Vampire makes it possible to drop heavier charges in places where a lightweight quadcopter can't reach. It flies silently, strikes from the darkness, and leaves behind only smoke and debris. The research doesn't stop there. Manufacturers continue to experiment with unmanned ground vehicles, boats, and all-terrain vehicles. They operate in areas where humans can no longer survive, where the fields are mined and the sky is filled with enemy FPVs. This is no longer just equipment, it's vital infrastructure. That's exactly why the front line is no longer advancing. People simply can't keep up with the machines. Every step out of the trench could be a one-way ticket. War is no longer linear. Today, it is targeted, instantaneous, mechanized. And now, the first is not just the one who is stronger, but the one who thinks, types, and flies faster. The war of the future has already begun, and Ukraine is leading in it.
But maybe, just maybe, Ukraine has found a way to fight back against FPVs. A special type of ammo might be the answer. Details in the next piece.
In this war, unmanned technologies have radically changed the situation on the battlefield.
It's chess. They play, we play. War used to be a lot like checkers, Soviet checkers, where everything was very primitive. Now it's chess, with different categories and aspects.
The Ukrainian army has developed an entire strategy for destroying equipment and the enemy itself using FPV drones. But the occupying forces have once again stolen ideas and are using FPVs for terror. According to Bild, there will be no peace in the near future. Putin is reportedly preparing a new large-scale offensive by the end of the summer. But Ukrainian soldiers are capable of stopping the occupiers' advance thanks to new anti-drone weapon capabilities. To counter FPV drones, new munitions have appeared in the Ukrainian forces. Ukraine is starting to produce special cartridges that can be fired from regular assault rifles. The Ukrainian company Brayon has begun producing special cartridges capable of destroying FPV drones.
At first glance, these look like ordinary cartridges of the most common caliber that can be loaded into an assault rifle. But thanks to the use of a special warhead, they make it much more likely to hit an FPV drone or a Mavic before it has a chance to attack.
It's kind of like a shotgun effect. They are made in the most common assault rifle, caliber 5.56 reals millimeters. After being fired, the cartridge breaks apart into about 5 fast-moving pellets. When fired rapidly, the multiple pellets create a spread similar to a shotgun, which can hit FPV drones at distances of up to 50 meters. The development has already been codified according to NATO standards. The goal is to equip every soldier with at least one magazine loaded with these rounds.
What's up? We took down a drone with a single shot.
The corresponding rounds, informally called Goroshek Pia, have already been used in limited quantities. One of the advantages of the Goroshek is that the initial velocity of its projectiles exceeds 800 meters per second. That's twice as much compared to smoothbore weapons.
Shotgun. It's unloaded. This is the most effective weapon against something like an FPV. That is, the shot spreads out. Yes.
The rounds are compatible with NATO rifles used by the Ukrainian army. So the soldiers won't need to be rearmed or additionally equipped. Now, when a drone is detected, you can simply swap the magazine There will be no need to carry separate weapons. Simply swapping magazines takes significantly less time and coordination than changing weapons.
This fire needs to be aimed, not just fire in that direction. And at the same time, you have to track a moving, fairly small target. It's very difficult. But if you do everything right, your reward will be a down drone.
Ammunition will come in handy in situations where there are large numbers of UAVs and small enemy assault groups operating on the battlefield. Over the past 3 years, unmanned aerial vehicles have radically changed the nature of warfare in Ukraine. FPV drones, which are distinguished by their high speed and maneuverability, have been the reason for the stalemate on the front in Ukraine. They are capable of striking tanks, IFVs, armored personnel carriers, artillery positions, command posts, and serve as a replacement for expensive munitions. More than 2/3 of tanks are destroyed specifically with the help of FPV drones. The production of FPV drones is so inexpensive that they can be called budget suicide terrorists. The emergence of such a seemingly small but significant piece of the puzzle, like a specialized round, is especially important against the backdrop of the appearance of Russian fiber-optic drones, which are immune to electronic warfare jammers. Now developers face the task of scaling up production to supply as many defense force units as possible with these new developments.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share this video if you think it's worth it. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you. Russia's tactics haven't changed. It's still about quantity, not quality. They're running out of volunteers, so now Russian police are arresting people for minor offenses and then pressuring them into going to war. More in our next report.
Bonuses for recruiting crime suspects. In Russia, police officers can get a decent bonus to their salary if they persuade a detainee to sign a contract. For each person recruited for the special military operation, bonuses of up to 100,000 rubles are paid.
Bro, your life is already screwed up. You just smoked some crap from Ali. Maybe at least you'll die for your motherland. Before taking him to the draft office, I even dunked his head in the sink to sober him up. Then we went. A district police officer from Kaluga.
According to the Russian outlet Verska, for every suspect sent to war since at least August of last year, district police officers, operatives and investigators in many regions of Russia have been receiving payments. A district police officer from Kaluga said that those he sent to fight in Ukraine would have died soon anyway if they had stayed civilians, but this way at least they served their country and he earned some extra money.
I only sent 3 guys, but honestly these are people whose lives were already in a really bad place. They would have died within a year anyway. Drunks or addicts. They were all already registered with us anyway. A while back, our deputy chief gave an order to motivate antisocial elements to sign up for contract service. Later on, they started paying bonuses for it. We use this as a tool to get rid of troublesome people who mess up our statistics. From 2 regular district officers, 12 to 15 people leave each month. A district officer from Kaluga.
In the spring of 2024, Russia amended its criminal procedure code. Now, all detainees over 18 and under 65 are informed that they not only have the right to a lawyer and the right not to testify against themselves, but also the right to go to the special military operation instead of facing trial. In other words, to become a soldier instead of a criminal defendant.
A reward for suspending criminal proceedings. So if he agrees right there before the first interrogation to go to the military enlistment office and sign a contract, there will be no further investigation, no trial, no examination of evidence. The case will be considered indefinitely suspended.
Each region has its own rate. In Moscow and Leningrad, they pay 50,000 for each person recruited. In the Rostov region, Before the new year, they paid 15,000, now it's already 60. In Bryansk, it's 20 to 30,000. Most often, those going to the special military operation are suspects in theft and crimes related to possession and distribution of drugs. Just in the month of June this year, 3,033 detainees across Russia were offered to be sent to war. 2,200 people refused to sign the contract, while 392 agreed, that is almost 12%. There are also 741 more Russians to whom the police offered to sign a contract. The outcome is unknown.
Those who go to the special military operation are first and foremost drug addicts, that is, people charged under Article 228 and those who already have several convictions, as well as thieves. In the winter, we had a mass exodus of drug addicts, both for possession and for dealing. Those are serious charges with long sentences, and even their paid lawyers themselves advise them to sign the contract. A police officer from Krasnodar.
But things aren't so rosy for criminals who already have one foot in prison and are suddenly offered a so-called lucky ticket to freedom, or more precisely, to the special military operation. The criminal case is only suspended, not closed. And it can only be closed if the detainee returns from Ukraine due to disability or with a significant award. But since last spring, journalists from the publication simply haven't found anyone like that. Essentially, it's a one-way ticket.
Formally, if he returns from the special military operation, or if the operation is officially stopped and he comes back without awards or injuries, then in theory, though, probably no one has actually been in such a situation yet. Criminal proceedings can be resumed and he can be prosecuted further. So far, all that comes back are death notices, zinc coffins, and I've seen several documents from different regional police departments where cases are closed due to the suspect's death. These are exactly the ones who were the first to leave sometime in the fall after signing a contract through the police. All of them die there in about a month or a month and a half. It's just that the death notices take a long time to arrive.
At this point, every Russian should think, maybe it's better to refuse the contract and serve your sentence but stay alive, rather than die somewhere in the fields of Ukraine or come back disabled. And even then, there will be no guarantee that the criminal case won't be reopened.
And finally, today, Ukraine marks Statehood Day and the Christianization of Rus Ukraine. Here's what President Zelensky said in his address.
I thank you, millions of Ukrainians, millions of strong characters. That's what our state is made of. That's who we are. That's our people, our history, our journey from the baptism of Rus Ukraine to this very day, the day of our statehood. The experience of every generation helps us today to stand firm, to believe in ourselves, to believe in Ukraine, to believe that we will make it, because Ukrainians were here, Ukrainians are here, and Ukrainians will stay here. Happy Statehood Day, dear citizens. Happy day of the baptism of Rus Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time.